I was really into Pokemon as a kid, as we all were, but then I grew older and only had enough money for Lego, so priorities were set, and here I am. A man-child. Now today, for the sake of trying new things, let's see if we can create our very own Pokemon card. Starting with a sketch, then drawing it properly, turning that into an actual fully designed regular Pokemon card, and then after that making a much cooler version of that same Pokemon. Sounds good? Stay tuned. For some inspiration, and I don't know how I came to this, but for some reason I first thought of these vehicles from Avatar. I love how they have these two propellers at the sides, and that seems to me like a very Pokemon thing to do. As a child, I also loved dinosaurs, so I wanted to mix that with those propellers, maybe to create kind of like a dragon-like creature. Let's go ahead and make some sketches.
Opening Photoshop.
These sketches are very wonky. I just use my mouse like I always do, and I tried drawing what I had envisioned. I basically drew a similar thing 3 times over to see what works best, and later I would use these to draw on top of using the pen tool. After a while, I somehow cooked this up, and this had potential to me, so let's go and try make this look a little bit better. And actually, it is the same thing, just nicer. This time I used the pen tool to make sure these lines are very clean and smooth. The pen tool is nice because you can later just tweak the path and change it as much as you want. You don't have to worry about doing it right the first time. I'm pretty sure I've never ever drawn something in this particular style, but I do think it turned out alright at the end. I had plenty of Pokemon reference anyway, so that helped a ton. These flaps on his back, for example, are kind of inspired by Rayquaza. I like including you guys in my work, so you're gonna help me find a name for this Pokemon. Let me just put something in my Instagram story. What shall we name him? Let me know. For the coloring, I put this guy back into Photoshop and started using the paint bucket tool to fill in all the shapes. I mostly used green as kind of a celebration of our new look on this channel. And using my good old highlights and shadows technique, I added shading in a very similar way to most Pokemon. Relatively hard edges and no more than about 2 lightness variations. After quite a while of doing this, I decided his belly should probably be a different color. So instead I went with this teal bluish tone. That definitely helped adding some contrast to the whole thing, and after some subtle changes, I called it good. And I won't lie, his head kind of looks like Charizard a little bit, but it's a bit slimmer, a bit more crocodilian. It is not identical, thankfully, but I did want to have that true Pokemon feel in there, and I thought this could help with that. Besides, it's more about making the actual card, because the Pokemon bit, creating actual original creatures, is very difficult and not really my thing. I have gotten a bunch of responses from you guys. Let's read a few. Bennyzard, that is very interesting indeed. Snakewing, Cromper, Flintlock, Dave. I quite like Dave. Crocopter, that's actually pretty good. So I've chosen a few. I like There Ya Go, because, you know, there you go. Aerosaur has a nice ring to it as well. And finally, Propelisk. And I do actually think Propelisk is the most Pokemon-ish, I feel like, so I might just go with that. I actually don't know much about Pokemon, unfortunately, so I asked you guys, and Azertone was happy to help. He deadass made me a whole mock-up guide. What a legend. Our Pokemon advisor, if you will. He came up with a bunch of abilities and stuff, so that's what we're gonna be using for our card. First, we're gonna start with a very basic, simplistic design to kind of get a sense of what is going on. And after that, we'll go crazy. I just put together this kind of template for a Pokemon card, and for this first, more simplistic version, I will use this as reference. It is very clean, very simple, very nice. I like it, so let's get to work. First off, we're gonna have to match all of these fonts. This, I'm pretty sure, is Gil Sans. As you can see, that looks pretty much just like it. However, it needs to be pushed in a little bit. There you go. That is the exact same font. For now, let's put all of the text in place and then later replace that with the text our advisor gave us. It is so satisfying to find the exact same font. For example, this right here is Futura. It's amazing. Now that is all the text from the original card. Let's change it up into the text we actually need. This, for example, is Tailwind Strike. Add 1 energy card. This Pokemon does 20 damage to itself. That doesn't seem great. Anyway, let's just do some random numbers for these. His name, of course, is Propelisk. 120 HP actually is correct. Illustration is, of course, by me. And then, of course, we're also gonna need all of these little icons. We've got all these over here and one more of these at the bottom. That is pretty decent. This is definitely starting to look like something. Now let's go ahead and pop in our actual Pokemon. I'm guessing something like that. We'll just kind of have to split this up into two separate. There you go. It is time we determine the colors of this card. Let's try the yellow edge just to see what that would look like, the same one as the original card. But then this middle part is where we can do a bunch of different things. Whatever we do end up choosing, we definitely need an inner shadow, just a little bit. Make sure we get that nice contrast going on there. Now these cards are never really all that smooth. They usually do have some kind of texture. So what if we tried something like this? See, that instantly gives it some depth, some spice. And I mean, as far as the colors go, I mean, red is kind of nice, but also kind of feel like blue might just be better. See, something like this. Okay, you know what? For now, I'm just gonna keep it this color, and then later we can always change it. First, we're gonna need a whole bunch of these details. For example, this bar over here. There's always one of these kinds of shapes that holds the information. We'll just have to make sure the text is on top of this, and also a very subtle stroke around it. And very often these are kind of chrome-ish, like chrome-like, so let's try and make this really nice and shiny, just about like this. There you go, that is pretty good. And a similar chrome little box for the basic text over here. I can even make a little gradient on it like that to make it look very chrome. And finally, maybe just a very subtle drop shadow below. Isn't that freaking epic? In fact, let me go ahead and put this over here as well to really nicely finish that part off too. Okay, so it seems most of the elements and text are in there. Now we just need to make a background for the Pokemon itself, and I'm still not entirely set on the color, but I guess we'll just have to see. For the background, this obviously needs to be some sort of sky because this guy flies very high up into the ozone. However, this does need some work. In fact, why don't we try and see what happens if we add some motion blur to it? Nope, never mind, that's trash. To keep it nice and simplistic, I might actually just paint some stuff myself. This might end up looking very weird, but let me just try painting some clouds over here. Just some really simplistic. There you go. I never really do this sort of stuff, but I guess this is not even too bad. Besides, the focus isn't really on the background anyway, so I think we should be good. And since we probably have a bunch of wind underneath these, let's kind of paint something like these. There you go, as if these are spinning really fast. Actually, dude, that's not even so bad, is it? Let's kind of play around with the color though, because I still don't feel like this is it. Maybe it's completely blue? This is nicer, but it does kind of blend in with the sky. That's not ideal. But everything else is just too much. Pink, that's just weird. Red is not terrible. This is alright, actually. Wait, I have an idea. What if we make the card itself yellow again? Like this, and then the edge is going to be light gray instead. Like that. And then with the texture and everything, I like it. Yeah, I think this might just be it. However, this of course is a very basic card. It's nothing too special. It is quite straightforward. It was a good exercise, but now it is time to go absolutely crazy and make something actually badass. Now for this second card, I need a bit of a different rendition of Propelisk. I'm basically gonna do something very similar to my realistified drawings. First, I would draw a shape, which you often see me do, and after each one, I add depth using shadows and highlights. I was going for this more 3D style that many Pokemon cards have, because I knew this style I could kind of achieve. I've done it several times before. I instantly made sure to put him in a rectangular shape, so I didn't have to make any unnecessary body parts. I can just drop it straight onto the card and it fits perfectly. First, I have to make sure this guy fits exactly within the black border. Obviously, I'm gonna borrow the text from the old one. Here you go. It's not exactly in the right spot, but that's fine. We can just kind of rearrange this to a card that looks more like the one we're gonna try and make. The info is slightly different from the first one as well though, because our assistant made one for an X version too. So let me go ahead and put the X symbol behind it as well. That instantly helps a lot, but we do need to change some of these items. This, for example, is now Dragon Assault, Hurricane Surge. You know how this goes. Changing text. This is supposed to be the fairy thing. To be completely fair, this already looks pretty nice. I mean, it's very clean and very plain, but it's Still nice. Time we put some work into this. Let's begin at the very top with all of the shapes that we need for this basic thing, for example, and just all of these other details that really spice it up. This right here, let's make that white for now. And really, just like the previous version, I just have to make these elements look a bit chrome-ish, a bit shiny, but that really isn't anything new. The color of this bar, I'm guessing for now, could be blue, similar color as the bottom of our Pokemon. But similarly as the last one, we can always change that later. Now these X ones usually have some more stuff going on, some more shapes and, you know, just stuff. As you can see in this version, for example, there's a bunch of these boxes with text in it and lines. We all need that sort of stuff. Let's go ahead and give all of these things the same kind of chrome look. That's pretty cool. Then copy it over to all the other ones as well. And I mean, the color, I just picked something, but it's quite nice, actually. And we definitely need the box around this X rule. I've pronounced it as X this whole time, but I bet it's actually something like just EX, and I've been looking like a total idiot this whole time. Anyway, I'm just applying some shading here and there. That is looking quite nice. And then this text, of course, has to be white so you can actually read it. Amazing. Now, given that we have pretty much all info in place, let's work on the background for the actual Pokemon first. I think for this one, a dark, cloudy sky could work pretty well. Of course, we absolutely want to have those blue tones in there because, you know, that's obviously just going to fit this character very well. There you go. This is actually pretty cool. We could even try adding some very subtle glow on the bright areas like this, make it just a bit more glossy and stylized, and some light bouncing off on the very bright spots like this, for example. Increasing some of these very subtle highlights in the back there. And you know what? Maybe even some lightning just in the background there. Very subtle. Not coming from him, of course, but I mean, lightning is striking for dramatic effect. Brightening up his eye a little bit. This is going to be epic. And there you go. Now, I'm in a bit of a pickle because I can't decide what color I like better. It's either this, or I can go with that same blue color. Of course, all this text down below has to be white. You know, I don't know. I like both. What am I gonna do? I must say though, with the blue, the dragon does pop a bit more. It's a bit more in your face. So actually I might go with this. What about the edge? Should that be lighter or darker? Definitely lighter. Like that. Dude, that pops. I love that. Now I just have to make some of these text thingies a bit brighter because this is barely readable from a distance. Or with this similar light blue kind of color. Guys, is this not turning out fire? I could stop here, but there's one last thing I want to add. The final thing that I really missed, cool effects and rocks flying around. I place a bunch of rocks around the sides of the card, and these would be the results of his attacks. With a very subtle highlight, I kind of blended them in there, and right after that I applied those same wind effects again. Just a flattened round brush, which I used to paint and hide constantly to get the best result. Kind of like mini tornadoes. And after all that, I decided this might just be it. I am so happy with how this turned out. It's quite scary to do a new thing you've never done before, but I do think it worked fantastically. I mean, that first version was simplistic. It was nothing too special. The pose was very basic. His face looks slightly like Charizard's, but I do feel like we made up for all that with that second X card, EX card. I don't even know. I also made this Shining version, which is the same, just different colors. I do think it looks pretty cool, the purple pops. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to print these in time to have physical Pokemon cards. That would have been really cool, but it is what it is, I guess. But you get the idea, and that's what it's all about. I myself love doing new things like this, so if you have any fun ideas, unique ideas that I could design or recreate or whatever, let me know down below in the comments. Now, if you enjoyed this video, make very sure to leave a like, subscribe, hit the bell not to miss a single future video, and then I hope I'll see you in the next one.